Please. They're killing her. Please. The little girl's scream echoed through the penthouse before Damien the Viper, Kane, even saw her. His hand was already on his gun when his office doors crashed open and she stumbled in. 7 years old, yellow dress torn and bloodied, knees scraped raw, dark curls wild around a face streaked with tears and dirt. She didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. Just ran straight at the most feared man in the city and grabbed his suit jacket with tiny trembling fists. They're beating my mama with baseball bats and there's so much blood, and they said they'll burn everything and kill her if she doesn't pay, and please, mister, please. 2 guards burst in behind her, weapons drawn, faces pale. Boss, we're sorry, she got past. Out. 1 word. The guards vanished. Damien looked down at the child clutching his jacket. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Blood from her scraped knees was staining his custom Italian wool. Her eyes, huge, brown, desperate, stared up at him like he was her last hope in the world. No one had looked at him like that in 20 years. Breathe, he said, his voice low and steady. Tell me your name. Ella Moretti. My mama runs the bakery on 5th Street and the men with the snake tattoos came in. She sucked in a ragged breath, her whole body shuddering. They're gonna kill her. The one with the snake on his neck laughed when she begged. He laughed. Every muscle in Damien's body went rigid. Snake tattoo. 5th Street. The Iron Fangs. We pay you, Ella sobbed, her grip on his jacket tightening. Every month mama gives money to the man who comes. She said Mr. Kane protects us. She said we'd be safe. Please, you have to stop them. Please. I'll do anything. I'll work for you when I grow up. I'll clean or cook or anything. Just please don't let them kill my mama. Something cold and sharp twisted in Damien's chest. This child was offering to sell her future to save her mother. She'd run through streets that would terrify grown men, climbed 23 floors of emergency stairs, crashed into the devil's own office, because she believed in something he'd stopped believing in decades ago. Protection. Honor. The promise that paying blood money meant something. The Iron Fangs had just declared war. They just didn't know it yet. Damien gently pried Ella's fingers from his jacket and crouched down until he was eye level with her. Up close, he could see the bruise forming on her left cheek, the cut on her lip, the way her pupils were blown wide with terror. How did you get hurt, Ella? I tried to stop them, she whispered. One of them pushed me. I hit the counter. White-hot rage, carefully controlled, efficiently channeled. Damien stood and pressed a button on his desk. Marcus. My car. Now. Full crew. He shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it around Ella's shoulders. It swallowed her completely, the hem pooling on the floor. She looked up at him, confusion mixing with hope on her tear-stained face. What's your mama's name? Gianna Moretti. The world stopped. Every sound in the room, the hum of the air conditioning, the distant traffic below, Ella's quiet sniffling, faded into nothing. Damien's vision tunneled until all he could see was this little girl looking up at him with his brother's eyes. No, it couldn't be. Gianna Moretti was dead. She died in the car accident with his brother Antonio 12 years ago. That's what he'd been told. That's what the report said. Both of them, gone in an instant, taking Antonio's unborn child with them. But Antonio's eyes had been that exact shade of brown. Warm, deep, kind in a way that Damien's had never been. Your mama, Damien said slowly, his voice careful and controlled even as his mind raced. How old are you, Ella? 7.5. My birthday was last month. 7.5. Antonio had died 12 years ago. The timeline. Your papa. Where is he? Ella's face crumpled. I don't have a papa. Mama said he died before I was born. She said he was good and brave and he would have loved me. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Damien's feet. Gianna was alive. Had been alive all this time. And unless he was very much mistaken, this little girl with his brother's eyes, his brother's dimpled chin, his brother's courage in running toward danger to save someone she loved. This was Antonio's daughter. His niece. The child he'd thought died before she was ever born was standing in his office, begging him to save the woman who should have been his sister-in-law. Mr. Kane. Ella's small voice pulled him back. Are you gonna help my mama? Damien looked down at her, at the blood on her knees, the terror in her eyes, the desperate hope in her voice. and made a decision that would change everything. Yes, he said quietly. But first, I need you to stay here where it's safe. My housekeeper, Maria, will clean your cuts and get you something to eat. No. Ella grabbed his hand with both of hers. You don't understand. They're hurting her right now. We have to go now. The fear in her voice was real, visceral. This wasn't a child exaggerating. Something in his gut told him that if they didn't move fast, Ella Moretti might not survive the night. And he'd already lost his brother. He wouldn't lose what was left of Antonio's family. All right, Damien said. You're coming with me. But you do exactly what I say when I say it. Understood. Ella nodded so hard her curls bounced. Good. He grabbed his phone and speed-dialed as he strode toward the door, Ella running to keep up. Marcus, forget the car. Get the helicopter on the roof. We're flying to 5th Street. And call Leo. I want every available man at Moretti's bakery in 5 minutes. If I show up and that woman is dead, heads will roll. Literally. He scooped Ella up in one arm, she weighed almost nothing, and headed for the elevator. She clung to his neck, her small body still trembling. We're really going to save her? She whispered against his shoulder. Yes. Promise. Damien thought about all the promises he'd broken over the years. All the lies he'd told. All the lines he'd crossed. But when he looked at this little girl, his brother's daughter, he knew this was one promise he'd keep or die trying. I promise. The elevator doors closed. 3 minutes to the roof. 7 minutes by helicopter to 5th Street. Every second counted. Damien pressed his hand against Ella's back and felt her heartbeat racing like a trapped bird. In his other hand, his phone lit up with incoming texts from his men confirming they were en route. Hold on tight, he told Ella as the elevator shot upward. She buried her face in his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Damien's jaw clenched. Thank him? She shouldn't be thanking him. She should be cursing him for running a city where little girls had to run to monsters for help. Where a woman trying to make an honest living got beaten with baseball bats because she couldn't pay extortion money to 2 different gangs. The Iron Fangs had made a catastrophic mistake tonight. They'd touched something that belonged to him. Family he didn't even know he had. And they would pay for that mistake with blood and fire and everything he'd built his reputation on. But first he had to get to Ella Moretti. First, he had to keep his promise to the little girl in his arms. First he had to face the ghost of a woman he thought was dead and answer a question that had haunted him for 12 years. Why had she let him believe she was gone? The helicopter descended over 5th Street like a predatory bird. Its spotlight cutting through the darkness and illuminating the scene below. Even from the air, Damien could see the broken front window of Moretti's bakery, the small crowd gathered on the sidewalk, the flashing lights of no police. His men had gotten there first and kept them at bay. Good. Stay close to me, he told Ella as the helicopter touched down in the middle of the street, its rotors creating a windstorm that sent trash and debris flying. Don't look if I tell you not to look. Understand? She nodded, her arms locked around his neck in a death grip. They stepped out into chaos. 3 black SUVs were parked at angles around the bakery, Damien's men forming a perimeter. Leo, his second in command, jogged over, his face grim. Boss, you need to see this. The woman. Alive. Barely. Leo's jaw tightened. It's bad, Damien. Really bad. Ella let out a whimper. Damien set her down but kept her hand firmly in his. Leo, this is Ella. She doesn't leave your sight. Got it. Boss. That's an order. Leo's eyes widened slightly. Damien never brought civilians to scenes, especially not children, but he nodded. Yes, sir. Damien crouched down to Ella's level again. I need to go inside and check on your mama. Leo here is going to stay with you. He's one of my best men. You'll be safe. But, Ella. He made his voice gentle but firm. Your mama needs help. Let me help her. Can you be brave for just a little bit longer? Her lower lip trembled, but she nodded. Okay. That's my girl. The words slipped out before he could stop them. He stood and nodded to Leo, who put a protective hand on Ella's shoulder. Then Damien walked into the bakery, and his blood turned to ice. The small shop had been destroyed. Display cases shattered. Tables overturned. flour and sugar mixed with broken glass on the floor, creating a grotesque snow globe effect. The cheerful yellow walls were splattered with red. Too much red. And in the center of it all, collapsed behind what remained of the counter, was Ella Moretti. She was barely conscious, curled on her side in a pool of blood. Her face was swollen almost beyond recognition. Split lip, blackened eye, nose clearly broken. Her right arm bent at an unnatural angle. Blood soaked through her white baker's apron, spreading across her chest and stomach. Each breath came in wet, rattling gasps that told Damien at least one of her lungs was compromised. She was dying. Right there on the floor of her bakery, surrounded by the ruins of everything she'd built, she was dying. And her face, beneath the bruises and blood, was the same face he'd seen in Antonio's wallet photo. The same face that had smiled at his brother's funeral that never was. The same face he'd grieved over for months until he'd finally accepted she was gone. Except she wasn't gone. She was here. And she was dying. Get the medic. Now. Damien barked at the nearest man. Then he was moving, kneeling beside Gianna, his hands hovering over her body, unsure where to touch that wouldn't cause more damage. Gianna, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, barely slits through the swelling, and she tried to focus on him. Ella, she wheezed. My baby. They took? Where's my? She's safe. She's right outside. She came to me for help. Something flickered across Gianna's battered face. Recognition. Fear. Shock. Damien. So she knew who he was. Of course she did. Don't talk. Save your strength. We're getting you to a hospital. No. Her working hand shot out and grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. No hospital. They'll. Questions. Police. Can't. She coughed and blood bubbled at the corner of her mouth. Ella. Promise me. If I don't. Promise you'll. You're not dying. Damien's voice was steel. You're not leaving that little girl alone. Do you understand me? You're going to survive this. Where the hell was his medic? Damien. Gianna's grip on his wrist tightened. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. But Antonio said he wanted to protect. And then he was gone and I thought if you knew. Knew what? But Damien's heart was already pounding because he knew. God help him, he knew. Ella. A tear slid down Gianna's blood-crusted cheek. She's his. Antonio's daughter. Your brother's child. I was pregnant. The accident. They told me you were dangerous. That Antonio was trying to leave. To protect us. And I believed them. I ran. I've been hiding for 12 years and I'm so sorry I'm so. Boss. The medic rushed in with a full trauma kit, followed by 2 more men carrying a stretcher. Damien stood back, his mind reeling as his medic went to work. He'd been right. Ella was Antonio's daughter. His niece. The family he thought he'd lost forever had been alive all this time. Hidden in plain sight in a bakery on 5th Street. Living under his protection without him ever knowing who they really were. And someone had nearly killed them tonight. Talk to me, Damien said to the medic, his voice deadly calm. Broken ribs, one of them probably punctured her lung. Broken arm definitely. Possible internal bleeding. Severe concussion. She needs a hospital, boss. No hospital, Gianna gasped. They'll find us. Who? Damien leaned down. Who will find you, Gianna? But her eyes rolled back, consciousness slipping away. We're losing her, the medic shouted. Boss, if we don't get her to a trauma center in the next 10 minutes. Take her to the safe house. The one in Riverside. I'll have Dr. Chan meet us there. Damien pulled out his phone, already dialing. Dr. Chan was a former trauma surgeon who'd gotten into some trouble and now worked exclusively for Damien. No questions, no paper trail, no police reports. And get her stabilized enough for transport. I don't care what you have to do. As his medic worked frantically to keep Gianna alive, Damien looked around the destroyed bakery. This hadn't been a simple shakedown. The Iron Fangs had used baseball bats, yes, but they'd also been methodical. They destroyed everything systematically. The ovens were smashed. The industrial mixer was in pieces. Even the framed photos on the wall, pictures of Ella as a baby, as a toddler, blowing out birthday candles, had been pulled down and stomped on. This was personal. And that meant Viktor Kozlov knew exactly who Gianna was. Maybe not that she was connected to Damien, but he knew she was someone worth targeting, someone worth sending a message through. The question was, what message? Boss. Leo appeared in the doorway, keeping Ella out of sight. The girl is asking about her mother. Damien walked to the door, keeping his body positioned so Ella couldn't see inside. She was holding Leo's hand, her eyes huge and desperate in her small face. Is she? Ella couldn't finish the question. She's alive, Damien said firmly. My best doctor is going to take care of her. But I need you to be very brave right now, Ella. Your mama is hurt badly and she needs to rest. Can you be strong for her? Ella's chin trembled, but she nodded. Can I see her? Damien glanced back at Gianna being loaded onto the stretcher, her face barely visible under the oxygen mask, her body broken and battered. No child should see their mother like that. Not yet. But I promise you'll see her as soon as she's better. Okay. You promised you'd save her, Ella whispered. You promised. And I'm keeping that promise. She's alive and she's going to stay alive. He held out his hand. Come on. We're going somewhere safe. Both of you. Ella looked at his hand for a long moment, then placed her tiny palm in his. What about the bakery? Damien looked at the destruction, the blood, the shattered dreams. I'll take care of it. That's what the man with the snake tattoo said, Ella said quietly. Right before he hit Mama the first time. He said, don't worry, sweetheart. We'll take care of everything. Then he laughed. The snake tattoo. Viktor's signature mark. The man himself had been here, had beaten Gianna personally, had laughed while doing it. Damien felt something cold and dark unfurl in his chest. Something he kept carefully controlled for years because letting it loose meant bodies and blood and consequences. But right now, with his brother's daughter's hand in his, looking at his brother's love being carried out on a stretcher, fighting for her life because he hadn't known she existed, right now he didn't care about consequences. Ella, he said softly, I need you to tell me everything you remember about the men who were here. Can you do that? She nodded, her little face set with determination that reminded him painfully of Antonio. There were 5 of them. The one with the snake tattoo was in charge. He had blonde hair and mean eyes. Really mean. Like he liked hurting Mama. Her voice shook but held. There was a fat one with a shiny head who smelled bad. A tall skinny one who kept giggling. And 2 others with big muscles who broke the windows and the cases while snake tattoo hit Mama. Did they say anything else? Any names? The fat one called snake tattoo Viktor. And Viktor said. She paused, clearly trying to remember. He said, tell your Viper this is what happens to people who don't choose sides. The old rules are dead. This is our territory now. Our territory. They'd known. They'd known Gianna paid protection to him. This wasn't random violence. This was a declaration of war, using a helpless woman and her child as the battlefield. Viktor Kozlov had just made the last mistake of his life. Boss. Leo's voice was tight. We need to move. There's chatter on the police scanner. Someone called 911. Damien nodded. Get everyone out. Clean the scene. I want 0 trace we were ever here. And Leo. He met his second's eyes. Find Viktor Kozlov. I want to know where he is, who he's with, and every location the Iron Fangs use. I want a complete dossier by dawn. Yes, sir. Leo hesitated. This is going to get messy, boss. It already is messy. Damien picked up Ella. She was swaying with exhaustion now, adrenaline finally crashing, and she immediately wrapped her arms around his neck. But I'm going to clean it up. As the helicopter lifted off, Ella's face pressed against his shoulder. Damien made a silent promise to his dead brother. I failed you once, Antonio. I won't fail them. Whatever it takes, I'll keep them safe. Even if I have to burn this entire city to the ground. The safe house in Riverside was more fortress than home. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors, panic rooms, and enough weaponry to supply a small army. Dr. Chun had arrived 20 minutes before them and set up an operating theater in one of the guest rooms. Because of course Damien kept medical supplies and equipment in all his safe houses. In his line of work, hospitals were liabilities. Now as dawn light crept through the windows, Damien sat in the living room with Ella asleep in his arms, her head on his shoulder, one small hand still clutching his shirt. She'd finally crashed 2 hours ago after refusing to sleep, insisting she needed to stay awake until her mama was okay. He'd promised her he'd wake her the moment there was news. Dr. Chun emerged from the guest room, pulling off blood-stained gloves. He was a small man in his 60s, with steady hands and a calm demeanor that came from 30 years of patching up people who couldn't go to hospitals. Well, Damien kept his voice low to avoid waking Ella. She'll live, Dr. Chun said. But it was close. 3 broken ribs, 1 punctured lung. I've reinflated it and inserted a chest tube. Broken radius and ulna in her right arm, I've set them. Severe concussion, facial fractures and significant internal bruising. She's going to be in considerable pain for weeks, and she'll need physical therapy for the arm. But she'll recover fully? Physically? Yes, given time and proper care. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. Psychologically? That's not my area, but she's been through severe trauma. The beating was personal, whoever did this took their time. Made her suffer. Damien's jaw clenched. When can she be moved? Not for at least a week, maybe 2. And even then she shouldn't be alone. She'll need round-the-clock care. Help with basic tasks. Dr. Chun glanced at Ella. The child. Her daughter. Well, children are resilient. But she'll need stability. Security. Both of them will. He gave Damien a meaningful look. This is more than just another job for you, isn't it? Before Damien could answer, a soft groan came from the guest room. Gianna was waking up. Damien carefully extracted himself from Ella, laying her on the couch and covering her with a blanket. She stirred but didn't wake, exhaustion keeping her under. Then he walked into the guest room, his heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. Ella Moretti looked like a broken doll in the hospital bed. Her face was swollen and bruised, her right arm in a cast, tubes and wires connecting her to monitors that beeped steadily. But her eyes, Antonio's eyes, were open and aware, tracking him as he approached. Ella. The word was barely a whisper. Asleep on the couch. She's fine. Not a scratch beyond some scraped knees. Damien pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down. You, on the other hand, look like you lost a fight with a truck. A ghost of a smile touched her split lips. Feel like it too. Her good hand moved restlessly on the blanket. How bad? Bad enough that you'll be here for a while. But you'll recover. Dr. Chun is the best. Where is here? My safe house. You're off the grid. No one knows you're here except my most trusted men. Gianna's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, they were wet with tears. Thank you. For Ella. For coming. I didn't think. I wasn't sure you'd actually. You sent your 7-year-old daughter to a Mafia boss for help, Damien said quietly. That's either the bravest thing I've ever heard or the most desperate. Both. A tear slid down her cheek. I had no one else. No family, no friends I could trust, no money for real protection. Just a failing bakery and a little girl who deserves so much better than. She trailed off, her gaze fixed on his face. You look like him. Antonio. Around the eyes. You knew who I was. When Ella came to me. I've always known. I paid protection money to Damien Kane for 12 years. You think I didn't know whose territory I was in? Whose organization kept me safe? She laughed, but it turned into a cough that made her wince. Ironic, isn't it? The man Antonio died protecting me from became the only thing keeping me, and his daughter alive. Died protecting you from? Damien's voice went very quiet. What do you mean? Gianna's gaze slid away from his. We need to talk about a lot of things. But first I need to know, does Ella know? About you and Antonio? No. But she told me her father died before she was born. That he was good and brave. Damien leaned forward. Gianna, I need to understand what happened 12 years ago. I was told you and Antonio died in a car accident. Both of you gone. I mourned for months. And now I find out you've been alive this whole time. Raising Antonio's daughter 5 miles from my penthouse. It was supposed to be temporary, she whispered. Just until things settled. Until I was sure. Sure of what? She met his eyes again, and in them he saw fear, old fear. The kind that burrowed deep and never left. Sure you wouldn't kill me and take my baby. The words hit like a physical blow. Damien sat back, feeling like the air had been knocked from his lungs. You thought I would. Antonio thought you would. Her voice was sad now, full of old grief. I'm sorry, Damien. I know that must hurt. But you have to understand, Antonio loved you. He idolized you. But he was terrified of you too. Terrified of what you'd become. Tell me. It wasn't a request. Gianna took a shaky breath. Antonio came to me 3 months before he died. He was working for you, running numbers, doing collections. Good money, but he hated it. Hated the violence, the fear, the way people looked at him when they knew who his brother was. And then I got pregnant. She paused, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach, as if she could still feel the child that had grown there. He was so happy at first. Then terrified. He said he couldn't raise a child in your world. That he'd seen what happened to Mafia children, how they grew up surrounded by violence, how they either became monsters or victims. He wanted out. He never said anything to me. Because he was afraid of how you'd react. Gianna's voice was gentle but firm. He said you'd never let him leave. That family loyalty was everything to you. And abandoning the business would be the ultimate betrayal. He said. She hesitated. Say it. He said you'd either kill him or drag him back, and either way I'd end up alone or dead. So he started planning. Got us fake IDs, stashed away money, made arrangements with a man who could get us out of the country. Damien's hands clenched into fists. Who? Does it matter now? They're dead. Antonio is dead. The man who was helping us is dead. Gianna's voice cracked. The night we were supposed to leave, everything went wrong. We were driving to the airport when 2 cars came out of nowhere. They ran us off the road. Antonio tried to fight them off, but there were too many. They dragged him out of the car, and I heard gunshots, and she broke down, sobs shaking her broken body, making her gasp with pain. Damien stood and carefully, so carefully, touched her shoulder. Stop. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You need to know. She forced herself to continue through the tears. One of them came to the car. Looked right at me. Said. The Viper sends his regards. Anyone who betrays the family dies. Remember that. Then they left me there with Antonio's body and drove away. I thought you ordered it, Damien. I thought you had your own brother killed for trying to leave. The room spun. Damien gripped the edge of the bed, his vision tunneling. I didn't. God is my witness, Gianna, I didn't know he wanted out. I didn't know about you, about the baby. I would never have. I know that now, she whispered. I figured it out about 5 years ago, when I finally started paying attention to how you ran your organization. The way you protected your people. The way you honored family. The rumors about what happened to men who hurt children or women. You're not the monster Antonio thought you were. But I am a monster, Damien said flatly. Just maybe not the one he feared. No. Gianna reached out with her good hand and grabbed his. You're a man who just flew across the city in a helicopter, because a little girl asked for help. You're a man who's keeping his brother's family safe even though we're strangers to you. Whatever else you are, Damien Kane, you're not the monster who killed Antonio. Then who did? The question had been burning in him since she started the story. I don't know. But they wanted it to look like you ordered it. They wanted me to believe you'd killed him. She squeezed his hand. Someone used your name to murder your brother. And I think they're still out there. Damien's mind raced, piecing together the implications. Someone had killed Antonio and framed him for it 12 years ago. Someone who knew enough about his organization to fake a hit. Someone who benefited from Antonio's death and Gianna's disappearance. And now, 12 years later, the Iron Fangs had nearly killed Gianna in a message specifically directed at him. The old rules are dead. This is our territory now. Viktor Kozlov, Damien said slowly. How long has he been extorting you? 6 months. His men showed up one day, said the neighborhood was under new management, and I needed to pay both you and them if I wanted to stay in business. Gianna's voice hardened despite her pain. I couldn't afford both, but I was more afraid of crossing you, so I kept paying your guy and stalled Viktor. Last night, he ran out of patience. Did he say anything about Antonio? About the past? She frowned, thinking. He called me a ghost. Said it was time to finish what was started years ago. I thought he was just being dramatic, but... Her eyes widened. You think he was involved in Antonio's death? I think it's too much of a coincidence that the man who killed my brother 12 years ago used my name, and now a man trying to take my territory nearly kills my brother's family while invoking my name. Damien stood, his mind already working through the angles. Viktor Kozlov worked for Sergei Volkov back then. Sergei was trying to move into my territory 12 years ago, but I pushed him out. Hard. He died 6 months ago, and Viktor inherited his operation. You think Sergei ordered the hit on Antonio? I think Sergei wanted to destabilize my organization by making it look like I killed family. Losing Antonio hurt, but if the word got out that I'd murdered my own brother, my men would have started questioning my leadership. Family is everything in our world. Killing blood is the ultimate taboo. Damien's voice went cold. But Antonio's death was ruled an accident. The official story was that you both died in a car crash. No hint of foul play, no investigation. Which means someone covered it up. Someone in your organization? The thought had already occurred to him. It made him sick. Maybe. Or someone with enough money to buy the right people. He looked at Gianna. Did Antonio ever mention anyone specific? Someone in my crew he didn't trust. She shook her head then winced. He didn't talk about the business with me. He wanted to keep me separate from all of it. A small sound from the doorway made them both turn. Ella stood there rubbing her eyes, Damien's blanket wrapped around her shoulders like a cape. Mama! Gianna's face transformed, all the pain and fear melting away. Baby! Ella rushed to the bed, and Damien quickly intervened, catching her before she could jump on her mother. Easy. Your mama is hurt, remember? You have to be gentle. Ella nodded, her eyes already filling with tears as she took in her mother's battered appearance. Mama, you look so broken. I feel broken, sweet pea, Gianna said softly. But I'm going to be okay. Mr. Kane kept his promise. He saved me. Ella looked up at Damien with those big brown eyes, Antonio's eyes, and something in his chest cracked. Thank you, she whispered. You're a good man. No one had called him a good man in 20 years. I'm going to let you two have some time together, Damien said, his voice rougher than intended. But Ella? Your mama needs rest. Just a few minutes, okay? Ella nodded seriously. Damien helped her climb carefully onto the bed, arranging pillows so she could snuggle next to Gianna without hurting her. As he turned to leave, Gianna called out softly, Damien. He paused at the door. Thank you. For everything. For believing me. For protecting us. She paused. Antonio would be happy to know his daughter is safe with you. Would he? Or would Antonio's ghost curse him for dragging his family deeper into the darkness? Damien didn't know. But he did know one thing. Get some rest, he said quietly. Both of you. You're safe here. I promise. As he closed the door, he heard Ella's small voice. Mama, is Mr. Kane my uncle? He didn't wait to hear Gianna's answer. Leo was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and a tablet full of information. He took one look at Damien's face and pushed the coffee across the counter. You look like you've seen a ghost, boss. Something like that. Damien took a long drink, letting the bitter liquid ground him. Tell me you found something. Oh, I found plenty. Leo tapped the tablet, pulling up surveillance photos. Viktor Kozlov is holed up in a warehouse by the docks, the old Petrov shipping facility. He's got about 30 men with him, heavily armed. Word on the street is he's expecting retaliation, but he doesn't think you know it was him yet. He's about to learn different. Damien studied the photos. The warehouse was a fortress, multiple entry points but all covered. Taking it by force would be bloody. What else? This is where it gets interesting. Leo swiped to a new screen, showing financial records. I had our accountant dig into the Iron Fang's money trail. 3 months ago they received a massive cash infusion. $2 million from an offshore account. Untraceable, except. He grinned. Our accountant is very good at his job. He traced it back through 7 shell companies to a source you're going to find very interesting. Don't make me guess, Leo. Marcus Chun. Damien's blood ran cold. Marcus Chun. His own accountant's cousin. A man who'd worked in his organization for 15 years. A man who'd been Antonio's friend. A man who had access to all Damien's financial records, His operations, his plans. Where is he? That's the thing, boss. He disappeared 3 days ago. Cleared out his apartment, emptied his bank accounts and vanished. I've got feelers out, but... He knew. Damien's voice was ice. He knew I'd eventually figure it out, so he ran. Figure what out? Damien looked at his second-in-command, a man he'd trusted for 10 years, and made a decision. 12 years ago, someone killed my brother and made it look like an accident. That same someone wanted Ella Moretti dead. Tonight, Viktor Kozlov nearly finished the job. And I'm betting Marcus-chan is the connection between then and now. Leo's eyes widened. The woman in there, she's Antonio's fiancée. And the little girl is his daughter. My niece. Damien's jaw clenched. Someone in my organization has been working against me for over a decade, Leo. Someone close enough to know about Antonio's plans to leave. Close enough to arrange his death and cover it up. Close enough to keep tabs on Gianna all these years. And now they're making their move. Leo's hand drifted to his gun. Victor's push into your territory, the attacks on your businesses, the challenge to your authority. It's all connected. They're trying to start a war. If I go after Viktor publicly, it'll look like I'm losing control. If I don't, I look weak. Either way, my organization starts fracturing, and someone is positioned to pick up the pieces. Marcus. Maybe. Or whoever he's working for. Damien pulled out his phone. But first things first. Viktor Kozlov beat a woman half to death and terrified a child. That debt gets paid in blood. Boss, if this is a trap, then we spring it. Damien's smile was cold and sharp. But we do it smart. Get me Tommy the rat. If anyone knows the inside layout of that warehouse and where Victor's hiding, it's him. Tommy's going to want something in return. He'll get to live. That should be payment enough. As Leo made the call, Damien walked to the window and looked out at the city waking up below. Somewhere out there Marcus-chan was running. Somewhere, Viktor Kozlov was celebrating his victory over a helpless woman. Somewhere, the person who'd killed Antonio was pulling strings and moving pieces on a board Damien hadn't even known existed. But Damien had spent 20 years building an empire on fear and respect. He'd clawed his way up from nothing, survived assassination attempts, gang wars and federal investigations. He'd earned his reputation as the Viper, patient, deadly, and absolutely ruthless when crossed. They'd made a mistake in targeting Gianna and Ella. They'd given him something he hadn't had in years. A personal stake. A reason to fight that went beyond money and power. They'd given him family to protect. And God help anyone who stood between him and that. Tommy's on his way, Leo said, joining him at the window. Should be here in an hour. What do you want to do about the woman and the kid? We can't keep them here forever. Why not? Leo blinked. Boss, this is a safe house. It's meant for temporary. Then we make it permanent. I want this place fortified. Round-the-clock security, medical equipment, everything they need. And I want backgrounds run on everyone who comes within a mile of this property. You're talking about a long-term commitment. I'm talking about protecting my family. The words hung in the air between them. Leo studied his boss's face, then slowly nodded. All right. I'll make the arrangements. But Damien, if word gets out that you have a weakness, every enemy you've ever made is going to come for them. Then we make sure word doesn't get out. Damien turned from the window. As far as the world knows, Ella Moretti died in that bakery last night. Her daughter too. Tragic accident. Fire maybe. Make it convincing. And the real Gianna and Ella? Ghosts. They don't exist anymore. Damien's expression hardened. Which means when I'm done cleaning up this mess, they can start over. New names, new lives somewhere safe. You really think you can walk away from all this? Give them a normal life? No. The admission was bitter. But I can make sure they survive. That's more than Antonio got. A soft knock on the kitchen door interrupted them. Dr. Chan stepped in, medical bag in hand. The patient is asking for you. Says it's urgent. Damien found Gianna sitting up in bed despite Dr. Chen's protests, Ella asleep beside her. The moment he entered, she grabbed a piece of paper from the nightstand. I remembered something. About the night Antonio died. Gianna, you should be resting. This is important. Her hand shook as she held out the paper. On it was a crude drawing of a symbol, a snake eating its own tail with a crown in the center. One of the men who killed Antonio had this tattooed on his hand. I saw it when he dragged Antonio from the car. I'd forgotten about it until Victor's men came last night. One of them had the same mark. Damien took the paper, staring at the symbol. An Ouroboros with a crown. It wasn't an Iron Fang's mark. It wasn't any gang symbol he recognized. But it meant something. It had to. You're sure? Positive. I've seen it in my nightmares for 12 years. Gianna's voice was steady despite her pain. Whoever killed Antonio is connected to Victor's crew. And if you're going after Victor tonight, I am. Then you need to be careful. These people have been planning this for years. They're not going to go down easy. Neither am I. Damien folded the paper and tucked it in his pocket. Get some rest, Gianna. When I come back, Victor Kozlov won't be a threat anymore. And after that? After that, we figure out who really killed Antonio. And we make them pay. Gianna reached out and caught his hand. Thank you. For believing me. For protecting Ella. For being the man Antonio hoped you were. Even if he was too afraid to see it. Damien looked down at their joined hands. Hers small and delicate despite the cast. His scarred and rough from years of violence. I failed Antonio once by not knowing he was in trouble. I won't fail his daughter. She already loves you, you know. Ella. She's been telling me all about how you carried her and promised to keep us safe. Gianna smiled through her pain. She said you have kind eyes. Then she's not looking close enough. Or maybe she sees what I'm starting to see. A man who's more than his reputation. Gianna squeezed his hand. Come back safe, Damien. Ella doesn't need to lose another father figure. The weight of those words settled on his shoulders like armor. He nodded once, then turned and left before she could see how deeply they affected him. Leo was waiting in the hall with Tommy the rat. A weaselly little man with darting eyes and nervous hands who'd survived in the criminal underworld by knowing everyone's secrets and selling them to the highest bidder. Mr. Kane, Tommy squeaked. Leo said you needed information about the Petrov warehouse? Blueprints. Guard positions. Where Victor sleeps, eats, and pisses. I want everything. Tommy licked his lips. That's gonna cost. Damien grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. His face inches from Tommy's. Let me explain something. Victor Kozlov beat a woman half to death in front of her 7-year-old daughter. You're going to help me make him pay for that, or I'm going to assume you're working for him. And if you're working for him, Tommy, you're going to die. Very, very slowly. Do we understand each other? Tommy nodded frantically, his face turning purple. Damien released him. Good. You have 1 hour to get me everything I need. Leo will set you up in the study. Don't disappoint me. As Tommy scurried away, Leo raised an eyebrow. You're really doing this? Going after Victor personally? Yes. It's been years since you got your hands dirty in the field, boss. You've got men for that now. This isn't about the business, Leo. This is personal. Damien checked his gun, the familiar weight of it grounding him. Gentlemen, Damien said pleasantly, I'm here to see Victor. He's expecting me. The larger of the two guards sneered. Boss said you'd come. Said you'd be stupid enough to walk right in. He grabbed Damien roughly and patted him down, finding all 3 guns and the knife. Armed. Boss said you would be. Of course I'm armed. Would you walk into a snake pit without protection? The guard's sneer faltered slightly. He spoke into a radio. He's here. And yeah, he's alone. Stupid bastard. The warehouse doors rolled open with a screech of metal on metal. Inside, the space was cavernous. High ceilings supported by metal beams, pools of shadow between harsh floodlights, and absolutely no cover. 30 men lined the walls, all armed, all pointed at him. And in the center, sitting on a throne made from shipping pallets, was Victor the Butcher Kozlov. He was exactly as Ella had described. Blonde hair slicked back, mean eyes, and the distinctive snake tattoo coiled around his neck. He was younger than Damien expected, mid-30s at most, with the build of someone who'd done his own dirty work before rising through the ranks. A baseball bat leaned against his makeshift throne, the barrel stained with something dark and rusty. Gianna's blood. Damien Kane. Victor's voice was thick with a Russian accent and barely concealed glee. The Viper himself. I'm honored. Truly. It's not every day a legend walks into my territory and surrenders. I haven't surrendered, Victor. I've come to deliver a message. Oh? And what message is that? Damien walked forward slowly, hands visible, stopping 10 feet from Victor's throne. Behind him, he heard the warehouse doors close with a definitive boom. Trapped. Exactly where they wanted him. You beat a woman and terrified her child, Damien said quietly. That was a mistake. Victor laughed. A cruel, harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. A mistake? No, my friend. That was a message. The old rules are dead. Your protection means nothing now. This city is being divided up, and you're not invited to the table. Who's at this table, Victor? Who do you work for? Does it matter? You're about to die either way. Victor stood, picking up the bat and testing its weight. I was going to make it quick. A bullet to the head, dump you in the river, done. But you know what? You cost me 3 men last month when you hit our shipment. So maybe I take my time. Maybe I let my boys have some fun first. Before you do, Damien said calmly, I want to know about the symbol. The Ouroboros with a crown. What does it mean? Victor's smile faltered. Just for a second, but Damien saw it. How do you? The man who killed my brother had it tattooed on his hand. So do 2 of your men, the one standing behind you with the scar, and the one to my left by the forklift. So I'll ask again. What does it mean? It means you're fucked, Victor snarled, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. It means you've been fucked for 12 years and didn't even know it. Your own people sold you out, Kane. Your own organization has been bleeding you dry, and you were too busy playing king to notice. Marcus Chun. Victor's eyes widened. You know about Marcus? Then you know it's over. He's got half your men on our payroll. Your empire is already crumbling. You just haven't realized it yet. See, that's where you're wrong. Damien smiled, and it was cold and terrible. Marcus ran 3 days ago, which means he knew I was getting close, which means your inside man is gone, and you're exposed. I've got 30 guns pointed at your head, and I've got 40 men surrounding this warehouse. Damien's voice never rose above conversational. Did you really think I walk in here without backup, Victor? I'm not stupid. I'm patient. While your men were watching the front door, mine were cutting your power, blocking your exits, and positioning snipers on every roof within 200 yards. On cue, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the warehouse. Shouts of confusion, the sound of weapons being cocked, men calling out to each other in panic. Damien dropped to the ground and rolled left as gunfire erupted. Wild, panic shots in the dark from men who couldn't see their target. Then Damien's men breached. Doors exploded inward from 3 sides. Flashbang grenades turned night into day for blinding instants. The sound was deafening: gunfire, screams, the thud of bodies hitting concrete. Damien stayed low, moving through the chaos with practiced ease. His eyes adjusted to the darkness enough to see shapes and movement. He was hunting. Victor's men were trained, but they'd been expecting an execution, not a war. They fell in clusters, caught between Damien's men pouring in from outside and Damien himself cutting through them like a ghost. He didn't use a gun, didn't need to. Every man he passed, he disarmed or incapacitated with brutal efficiency. A broken elbow here, a knife to the thigh there, pressure points and joint locks, and the kind of violence that came from 20 years of surviving in a world where hesitation meant death. He found Victor trying to escape through a back office, the baseball bat still clutched in his hands like a talisman. Going somewhere? Victor spun, swinging the bat in a wild arc. Damien caught it mid-swing, jerked it from Victor's hands and threw it aside. Then he grabbed Victor by the throat and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the drywall. I want a name, Damien said quietly, his face inches from Victor's. The person behind Marcus. The person who ordered my brother's death. Give me a name and I'll make this quick. Fuck you. Victor spit in his face. Damien wiped the spit away slowly. Wrong answer. What happened next wasn't pretty. Damien had learned early in his career that information extraction was as much art as science. You had to know when to push, when to ease off, how to make someone believe that talking was their only escape from pain. Victor lasted longer than most, almost 15 minutes before he broke. Volkov, he screamed. Sergei Volkov. He ordered the hit on your brother. He wanted to destabilize your organization, frame you for killing family, break you from the inside. Sergey's dead. But his daughter isn't. Victor's laugh was half-sob, blood bubbling at his lips. Natasha Volkov. She's been running the operation since her father died. She's the one who activated Marcus, who pushed us into your territory, who's been planning this for years. The symbol, it's hers. The crowned serpent. Everyone who wears it answers to her. Natasha Volkov. Damien's mind raced. Sergey's daughter had been a teenager when her father died, barely 18. He dismissed her as a non-threat, assumed she'd fade into obscurity. Instead, she'd been building her own organization in the shadows, using her father's grudge against Damien as fuel. Where is she? I don't know. I swear to God I don't know. We only ever meet through intermediaries, encrypted messages. She's a ghost, Kane. You'll never find her. We'll see about that. Damien released Victor, letting him slump to the floor. You're going to disappear, Victor. Tonight. You're going to run as far and as fast as you can, and you're never coming back. Because if I ever see your face again, if I ever hear your name mentioned in this city, I will finish what I started. Do you understand? Victor nodded frantically, clutching his broken ribs. And Victor? If Ella Moretti or her daughter are ever threatened again, if they so much as get a parking ticket, I'm going to assume it was you. And I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Clear. Crystal. Damien walked out of the office, leaving Victor bleeding but alive. Outside, the warehouse was a war zone. Bodies on the ground, his men securing the survivors, the smell of cordite and blood thick in the air. Leo jogged over, his face grim. We got 23 of them. 7 dead. The rest wounded or surrendered. We lost 2 men, Rodrigo and James. Damien felt the weight of those names. Good men, loyal men. Dead because he'd brought them into his personal vendetta. Take care of their families. Full compensation, college funds for the kids, whatever they need. Already done. Leo lowered his voice. Did you get what you needed? Yes. And it's worse than I thought. Damien quickly explained about Natasha Volkov and the Crown Serpent organization. Leo whistled low. So we're not dealing with a simple gang war. We're dealing with a coordinated takedown that's been years in the making. And Gianna and Ella are right in the middle of it. Damien looked at the destruction around him. Natasha must have kept tabs on Gianna all these years, waiting for the right moment to use her. The question is why now? What changed? Maybe she didn't know Gianna was alive until recently? If Marcus was her inside man, he might have just figured out that Antonio's fiancée survived. Maybe. But something about that didn't sit right with Damien. Natasha had been planning this for years. She would have been thorough, which meant she'd known about Gianna, known about Ella, and had chosen to leave them alone. Until 6 months ago when the Iron Fangs started their extortion. What had changed 6 months ago? Boss, Leo said urgently. We need to move. Police are going to be here any minute, and we don't have the connections to keep this quiet. Damien nodded. Get everyone out. Burn the warehouse. Make it look like an electrical fire. And Leo, double the security at the safe house. If Natasha knows about Gianna, she's going to make another move. What about you? I need to have a conversation with someone who might know where Natasha is hiding. Damien pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. And I need to make sure Ella and Gianna stay dead. As far as the world knows, they died in that bakery. That's the only way they stay safe. As sirens wailed in the distance, Damien walked away from the burning warehouse and the bodies of men who'd made the mistake of threatening his family. He'd won this battle, but the war was just beginning. Natasha Volkov was out there somewhere, pulling strings, planning her next move. She'd killed his brother, nearly killed his brother's family, and infiltrated his organization. She wanted him destroyed, not just dead but broken, his empire in ashes, his reputation ruined. She was about to learn why they called him the Viper. Because vipers were patient. They waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when they did, the bite was always fatal. Dawn was breaking when Damien returned to the safe house, exhausted and covered in other people's blood. He'd changed clothes in the car, but he could still smell smoke and cordite in his hair. Leo's text had said Ella was awake and asking for him. He found her in the kitchen with Maria, his housekeeper, eating pancakes and swinging her legs. She looked so small in the oversized safe house, so fragile and innocent that Damien's chest tightened. This was what he was fighting for. This was what mattered. Mr. Kane. Ella's face lit up, and before he could stop her, she jumped from her chair and run to him, wrapping her arms around his legs. You came back. I promised I would. He awkwardly patted her head, unused to physical affection from anyone, let alone a child. Mama said you went to talk to the bad men. Did you make them stop being bad? How did you explain to a 7-year-old that you just orchestrated a massacre? I made sure they won't hurt you or your mama again. Good. Ella looked up at him with complete trust. Mama wants to see you. She's awake. Damien found Gianna propped up in bed, looking slightly better despite the bruises darkening to purple and black. Dr. Chun had done good work. She was alert, breathing easier though still obviously in pain. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting. You should see the other guys. Did you? She left the question hanging. Victor won't be a problem anymore. He's running and he won't stop. But Gianna, there's something you need to know. Damien pulled up a chair and told her everything about Natasha Volkov, the Crown Serpent organization, Marcus Chen's betrayal, and the coordinated effort to destroy him using her and Ella as leverage. When he finished, Gianna was silent for a long moment. So this was never random. Natasha has been watching us for years. Probably since Antonio died. Which means she knows Ella exists. She knows you're connected to me. Damien leaned forward. I can keep you safe here short term, but eventually she'll find you. She's patient and resourceful. And she has people inside my organization that I haven't identified yet. What are you saying? I'm saying I need to make you disappear. Both of you. New identities, new location, enough money to start over somewhere far from here. Witness protection basically, but without the government involved. Gianna's hand trembled as she touched her daughter's small form sleeping beside her. And you? Where will you be? Here. Fighting. Damien's voice was flat. I can't run, Gianna. This is my city, my organization. If I disappear, Natasha wins. She gets everything Antonio died trying to protect you from. So we disappear and you stay and fight a war that might get you killed. Is that the plan? Yes. That's a terrible plan. It's the only one that keeps you and Ella alive. Gianna studied his face for a long moment. Antonio used to talk about you, you know, before he got scared. He said you were the strongest person he knew. Not physically, though you were that too, but inside. He said you had this core of absolute certainty about who you were and what you stood for. He envied that. He shouldn't have. Maybe not. But Damien, that strength? Ella needs it. Not from a distance, not from someone who ships her off to be safe while he fights alone. She needs a family. A real one. Gianna's eyes were fierce despite her battered appearance. Antonio is dead. My parents are dead. I have no siblings, no cousins, no one. You're the only family Ella has left besides me. And if you die fighting this war, she loses you before she ever really gets to know you. Better that than dead because Natasha used her to get to me. Or maybe there's a third option. Gianna struggled to sit up straighter, wincing. You said Natasha's been planning this for years, right? Building her organization in secret. Waiting for the perfect moment. Yes. What if we take away her perfect moment? What if instead of playing her game we change the rules? Gianna's voice gained strength. She wants you destroyed and isolated. So do the opposite. Go public with Ella. Acknowledge her as your niece, your family. Bring her into the light instead of hiding her in shadows. Damien stared at her. That's insane. It makes her a target. She's already a target. Natasha already knows about her. But right now, Ella's a secret weapon. Something Natasha can use against you quietly. Make her public, make her family, and suddenly Natasha can't touch her without declaring open war on you in a way that everyone will see. Gianna gripped his hand. You said family is everything in your world, that killing blood is the ultimate taboo. Use that. Make Ella's existence known, and anyone who touches her becomes your enemy, and the enemy of everyone who respects those laws. It was crazy, reckless, dangerous in ways Damien couldn't fully calculate. It was also brilliant. You'd be willing to risk that? To have Ella's face known. Her connection to me public knowledge. I'm willing to risk anything if it means she gets to know her uncle. If it means she grows up with family instead of running from shadows. Gianna's eyes. 3. If at any point I determine that the risk is too great, that keeping you close is going to get you killed, you don't argue. You take Ella and you run. No questions, no hesitation. Gianna hesitated on that one. Only if you promise that you'll run with us. That you won't stay behind to fight a losing battle. Gianna. Promise, Damien. Or we're not doing this. I won't let Ella get attached to you only to watch you die for pride. Gianna frowned, thinking. There was a man. He came to see Antonio a few weeks before we were supposed to leave. Said he was a friend, that he could help us disappear. Antonio was nervous around him, but desperate. The man said you'd never let Antonio go. That you'd see leaving as betrayal, that you'd. She trailed off. That I'd kill him, Damien finished. What did this man look like? Older than Antonio, maybe late 30s at the time. Slicked back dark hair, expensive suit, scar on his chin. Gianna's eyes widened. Damien, he had a ring. Silver with a snake eating its tail. I remember because he kept playing with it when he talked. Marcus Chun. It had to be. He'd been in the organization that long, had access to Antonio, had been positioned to manipulate him. Which meant the betrayal went back even further than Damien thought. The man who helped you. He was working with Natasha even then. He made Antonio afraid of me deliberately, drove you apart, then arranged for Antonio's murder to look like my doing. Damien's hands clenched into fists. This entire thing was orchestrated from the start. But why? What did Natasha gain? Revenge, probably. Her father died because of me. I won't pretend that war was clean. But more than that, she saw an opportunity. If she could make me look like a monster who killed his own brother, she could destabilize my organization, turn my own people against me. It almost worked. Damien met Gianna's eyes. If you hadn't survived, if Ella hadn't been born, I would have never known the truth. I would have carried the guilt of Antonio's death forever, believing he died trying to escape me. Instead, you get to carry the guilt of not knowing he was in trouble. That's fair. It's not about fair, Damien. It's about healing. Gianna's voice was gentle. Antonio made choices based on lies. You made choices based on ignorance. We all did the best we could with what we knew. Now we know better. Now we can do better. Could they? Damien wanted to believe it, but he'd lived in darkness so long that light felt foreign and dangerous. But looking at Ella through the doorway, laughing with Maria about birthday cakes, he thought maybe, just maybe, it was worth trying. I need to go, he said. I have calls to make, security to arrange, and traitors to identify. But I'll be back tonight. We'll have dinner together. All of us. Like a family? Gianna smiled. Like a family, Damien agreed. And the word didn't feel as foreign as it once had. Over the next 2 weeks, Damien rebuilt his empire from the ground up. He brought in external security consultants to sweep all his properties for bugs and tracking devices. They found 17. He had forensic accountants go through every transaction in his organization for the past 5 years, looking for irregularities. They found a pattern of money being siphoned off to offshore accounts controlled by Natasha's network. Most importantly, he interviewed every single person in his organization personally. It took days, cost him sleep, and revealed truths that made his blood boil. 8 people were working for Natasha. 8 people he trusted, paid, protected. They'd been feeding her information, undermining his operations, positioning themselves to take over when he fell. They disappeared. Quietly. Permanently. Damien didn't enjoy it, but he didn't hesitate either. Betrayal was cancer, you cut it out or it killed you. But he also promoted people. Leo became his official second-in-command with a legitimate title and legal protections. He brought in younger members of his organization, people who'd proven themselves loyal, and gave them more responsibility. He started legitimizing his businesses, the clubs, the real estate, the security firms, creating a legal framework that could protect Gianna and Ella if anything happened to him. And every night, he came back to the safe house and had dinner with his family. It was awkward at first. He didn't know how to talk to a child, how to answer her endless questions about everything from why the sky was blue to whether he'd ever met a real superhero. But Ella was patient with him. and Gianna translated his gruff responses into something more appropriate for a 7-year-old. Slowly, carefully, they became something that resembled a family. Damien taught Ella to play chess, marveling at how quickly she picked it up. She taught him to braid hair, though his attempts were clumsy at best. They watched movies together. Ella's choice, always animated, always with happy endings. He read her bedtime stories, stumbling over the voices until she giggled and showed him how to do them properly. Gianna healed. Her bruises faded from purple to yellow to gone. Her arm knit back together, though she had to do physical therapy daily. She started baking again, filling the safe house with the smell of fresh bread and pastries, creating a warmth that had nothing to do with ovens. And Damien found himself looking forward to coming home. For the first time in 20 years, he had something more important than business, more valuable than power. He had family. But Natasha hadn't made another move. She'd gone silent, disappeared into the shadows like smoke. It made Damien nervous. She was planning something, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He could feel it like pressure before a storm. 3 weeks after the warehouse incident, Leo came to him with news that changed everything. "We found Marcus-chan." Damien looked up from the financial reports he'd been reviewing. "Where?" "Mexico. Trying to set up a new life under an assumed name." "But boss." Leo's expression was grim. "He wants to talk. Says he has information about Natasha's plans. Says he'll trade it for immunity." "No immunity. But I'll listen before I kill him." Damien stood. "Bring him in. Tonight. I want him at the warehouse on 4th Street, the one we use for special situations." "And the family?" "They stay here. This isn't something Ella needs to witness." Damien grabbed his coat. "Tell Gianna I'll be late for dinner." The warehouse on 4th Street was exactly what it sounded like. A place where people went to have conversations that couldn't happen anywhere else. It was soundproof, isolated, and equipped with everything necessary for enhanced interrogation if things went that way. Marcus-chan looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. He was thin, nervous, jumping at shadows. When Leo's men brought him in, hands cuffed behind his back, he looked at Damien with eyes full of fear and something that might have been regret. "Thank you for seeing me," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "I know you have no reason to." "You betrayed me for 12 years, Damien interrupted. "You helped kill my brother. You nearly got his family killed. Give me one reason I shouldn't put a bullet in your head right now." "Because I can help you stop Natasha. Because I know her plan, her locations, her next move. Because..." Marcus took a shaky breath. "Because I'm tired of being afraid. I want this to end. Then talk." Marcus did. For the next 2 hours he told Damien everything. How Sergei Volkov had recruited him 15 years ago when Marcus was young and in debt. How he'd been positioned in Damien's organization as a sleeper agent, feeding information slowly, waiting for orders. How those orders had come when Antonio started talking about leaving. "Sergei wanted Antonio dead," Marcus said. "Not because of anything Antonio did, but because Sergei knew it would destroy you. He'd studied you, boss. He knew family was your only real weakness. So he had me befriend Antonio, gain his trust, then slowly feed him paranoid stories about you. Made him terrified, desperate enough to trust me when I said I could help him escape. And then you set him up to die." "Yes." Marcus's voice broke. "I arranged for him to be killed and made it look like an accident. I paid off the investigators, buried the evidence. I did everything Sergei ordered because I was too much of a coward to say no." "Why didn't you kill Gianna?" "I tried. The men were supposed to kill her too, make it look like they both died in the crash. But when they got there, she was still alive, and one of them, Victor, actually decided to let her suffer instead. Said death was too easy. They let her go, figuring she'd die slowly from grief or suicide." Marcus laughed bitterly. Natasha was furious when she found out. Spent years trying to locate Gianna. But Gianna had disappeared completely. It wasn't until 6 months ago that we finally tracked her down. "What changed 6 months ago?" "Ella." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "She started school. Needed enrollment documents, birth certificate. Gianna had to use real names, real paperwork. That's how we found her. And that's when Natasha decided to make her move." "Why not just kill them then?" "Because Natasha doesn't want them dead. She wants to use them." Her plan is to take everything from you the way you took everything from her father. Your organization, your reputation, your family, your life. She wants you to watch it all crumble before she kills you. Marcus leaned forward. Boss, she's obsessed. Has been for years. Her whole life is about destroying you. Where is she? That's what I'm trying to tell you, she's here. In the city. She's been here for weeks, coordinating everything personally. She has a base of operations in the old steel building downtown. The one that's supposedly being renovated. 10th floor, northwest corner. She's got 20 men with her, all veterans, all loyal. She's planning something big for this weekend. What? Marcus hesitated. She's going to go public. She's got evidence doctored but convincing that you killed Antonio. She's going to release it to the media, to your rivals, to everyone. Make you look like a monster who murdered his own brother for trying to leave. It'll destroy your reputation. Turn your own people against you. And then while you're dealing with the fallout, she's going to hit you from every angle. Take your businesses, kill your lieutenants, and finally, he swallowed hard. She's going to take Ella and Gianna, use them as bait to draw you out, then kill all three of you on live video. The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Damien processed the information, his mind racing through implications and countermoves. Natasha was making her play finally, and it was even more elaborate than he'd feared. But she'd also made a mistake. She'd told Marcus her plans. And Marcus, coward that he was, had run to Damien. This weekend, Damien said. When exactly? Saturday night. There's some charity gala at the Grand Hotel. A lot of city officials, business leaders, media. She's planning to leak the evidence there. Make it a spectacle. Marcus looked desperate. Boss, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Let me help fix this. Let me help take her down. It won't erase what I did, but maybe it'll mean something. Damien studied the man who'd betrayed him for over a decade. Marcus was weak, venal, easily corrupted. He'd helped kill Antonio and nearly gotten Gianna and Ella killed. By all rights, he should die slowly and painfully. But he was also offering information that could end this war before it truly began. Leo, Damien said quietly, take Marcus to secure holding. Keep him comfortable but guarded. No communication with anyone. Boss, what about immunity? There is no immunity for what you've done, Marcus. But if your information is accurate, if it helps me stop Natasha, I'll make your death quick and painless. That's the only deal I'm offering. Marcus slumped in defeat but nodded. As Leo dragged him away, Damien pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me, he said when Gianna answered. We need to talk. Tonight. It's time to make our move public. The Grand Hotel ballroom glittered with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns. The city's elite had gathered for the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. A who's who of politicians, business magnates, and social climbers. None of them knew they were about to witness history. Damien Kane stood at the edge of the ballroom, completely visible for the first time in years at a public event. He'd spent his career operating from the shadows, but tonight he was stepping into the light. Beside him, Gianna wore a midnight blue gown that hid the scars from her injuries, her hair swept up elegantly. She looked nervous but determined. And holding Damien's hand, wearing a yellow dress that matched the one she'd worn the night she'd run to him for help, was Ella. Are you sure about this? Gianna whispered. No, Damien admitted. But it's the right move. Natasha wants to control the narrative? We're about to take that away from her. He'd spent the past 3 days preparing for this moment. He'd reached out to media contacts, influential people, even a few politicians who owed him favors. He'd arranged for every major news outlet to have cameras at this event. He'd leaked just enough information to make people curious about what the Viper was planning. And now he was about to tell them. The master of ceremonies was announcing the next speech, something boring about hospital wing donations, when Damien moved. He walked straight to the stage, Ella's hand still in his, Gianna following behind. The MC looked confused but stepped aside. The crowd murmured, sensing something unexpected. Damien took the microphone and looked out at the assembled faces, some curious, some hostile, some afraid. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Good evening, he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Most of you know who I am. Damien Kane. Some call me the Viper. I've built a reputation in this city as someone to be feared. Tonight, I'm here to tell you a different story. He gestured to Ella. This is my niece, Ella Moretti. 7 years old, brave beyond measure. 3 weeks ago, she ran to me for help because men were beating her mother. Her father, my brother Antonio, died 12 years ago trying to protect his family. I thought they died with him. I was wrong. The crowd was dead silent now, hanging on every word. For 12 years, I believed my brother had abandoned his family and died in the process. I carried that guilt, that sense of failure. But the truth is, Antonio was murdered. Assassinated by people who wanted to destroy me from the inside. They used my brother's death to try to break me, and it almost worked. Damien's voice hardened. The person responsible for my brother's murder is Natasha Volkov, daughter of Sergei Volkov, who tried and failed to take this city from me years ago. She spent over a decade planning her revenge, infiltrating my organization, manipulating people, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He looked directly at one of the cameras. Natasha, I know you're watching. I know you're here. You wanted to expose me as a monster tonight, to show evidence that I killed my own brother. But the truth is already out. You failed. Your inside man is in custody. Your plans are known. And you've lost your only leverage. My family is safe, and everyone in this city now knows they're under my protection. A commotion at the back of the ballroom. Security guards moving, someone pushing through the crowd. Damien smiled coldly. Right on time. Natasha Volkov emerged from the crowd like a queen entering court. She was younger than Damien expected. Late 20s, beautiful in a cold, calculated way, with platinum blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice. She wore a red dress that was probably meant to be stunning but just looked like blood. How dramatic, Mr. Kane, she said, her Russian accent crisp and clear. But you're wrong about one thing. I haven't failed. This. She gestured at the ballroom. This is exactly what I wanted. All the right people, all the right cameras witnessing the great Damien Kane brought low. She pulled out a phone and held it up. One button, Mr. Kane. One button and evidence of your crimes. Real crimes, not the made-up ones about your brother, goes to every media outlet in the country. Your money laundering, your extortion networks, your violence. All of it, documented and proven. You mean the evidence Marcus Chun fabricated for you? Damien's smile widened. The evidence that my forensic accountants have already debunked? The evidence that's been traced back to your own operations? Send it, please. It'll only prove what I'm about to tell everyone here. He turned back to the crowd. Natasha Volkov runs a criminal organization called the Crowned Serpent. For years, she's been operating in the shadows, using violence and intimidation to take what doesn't belong to her. She's responsible for dozens of deaths, hundreds of crimes. And tonight, she walked into a room full of witnesses and cameras to threaten me. Natasha's confident smile faltered. You wanted to destroy me publicly, Damien said. You wanted everyone to see me fall. But what you've actually done is expose yourself. Every camera in this room is now recording you. Every witness here has heard you confess to having evidence of crimes. And the police. He gestured to the doors, where uniformed officers were entering, led by a detective Damien had been cultivating for years. Are here to arrest you. You're bluffing, Natasha snarled, but her eyes were wild now, trapped. Am I? Detective Rodriguez, please read Ms. Volkov her rights. As the police moved in, Natasha's hand went to her purse. Damien reacted instantly, pushing Ella and Gianna behind him. But Natasha wasn't pulling a gun. She was pulling another phone. If I'm going down, she screamed, I'm taking you with me. I have men positioned at every one of your businesses. I have bombs ready to detonate. I have. A gunshot rang out. Natasha stumbled, blood blooming on her red dress. Behind her, Leo stood with his gun drawn, his face grim. She was reaching for a detonator, he said calmly. I saw it. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Screaming, people running, security moving. But Damien stayed perfectly still. Ella and Gianna sheltered behind him. He watched as Natasha fell to her knees, her eyes locked on his, full of hatred and shock. You've ruined everything, she gasped. My father. I was supposed to avenge. Your father was a tyrant who hurt innocent people, Damien said quietly, kneeling beside her. And you became exactly what he was. This didn't have to end this way, Natasha. You could have built something new, something better. Instead, you chose revenge. And revenge always costs more than it's worth. Natasha's eyes glazed over. Her last breath was a curse in Russian that Damien didn't need to understand. As paramedics rushed in and police secured the scene, Damien turned to find Ella staring at him with wide eyes. She just witnessed violence, real final violence. He'd failed to protect her from that, and the guilt was immediate and crushing. Uncle Damien? Her voice was small. Is the bad lady gone? Yes, sweetheart. She can't hurt anyone anymore. Good. Ella grabbed his hand. Can we go home now? I don't like it here. Yes. We can go home. As they walked out of the ballroom, past the cameras and the chaos and the gawking crowds, Damien felt something he hadn't felt in years. Closure. Natasha was dead. Her organization would crumble without her. The threat was over. But more than that, walking out with Ella's hand in his and Gianna beside him, he realized he actually had a home to go to. Not a penthouse or a safe house, but a real home. With family. Epilogue. After the storm. 6 months later, the bakery reopened. Not the same location that had been too damaged, too full of bad memories. This was a new place, bright and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a play area for kids. Moretti and Kane Family Bakery, the sign read. A partnership between Gianna's expertise and Damien's capital. Ella sat at a small table in the corner doing homework, her legs swinging as she worked through math problems. She looked up when Damien entered, her face breaking into a huge smile. Uncle Damien. You're early. Finished my meetings. He ruffled her hair, drawing an indignant squawk. How's school? Boring. But I got an A on my history test. She pulled out a paper proudly. That's my girl. He examined the test with genuine interest. Ella had thrown herself into school with the same determination she'd shown running to save her mother. She was smart, fierce, and showed absolutely no fear of challenging authority. Traits that both worried and delighted him. Gianna emerged from the kitchen, flour dusting her apron. Her arm had healed completely, though she still had faint scars. She claimed they were reminders of how strong she was. You're early. Good. I need your opinion on the new cinnamon roll recipe. I'm not a food expert. You're a man with taste buds. That's expertise enough. She handed him a still warm roll, and he had to admit it was incredible. We're thinking of making these our signature item. Do it. As Gianna went back to the kitchen and Ella returned to her homework, Damien looked around the bakery. It was doing well, better than the old one ever had. Partly because of better location and capital, but mostly because word had spread that this was Damien Kane's family business. Nobody dared cause trouble here, and surprisingly, a lot of people wanted to support it. Turned out, humanizing the Viper had been good for business. His organization had changed too. He'd legitimized more of his operations, stepped back from the violent side of things. He still ran the city, but more like a mayor than a mob boss. It was a careful balance, one that wouldn't have been possible without the cleanup after Natasha's death. Her organization had collapsed as predicted. Most of her people had either disappeared or come over to Damien's side. The few who tried to continue her vendetta had been dealt with, swiftly, quietly, finally. The crowned serpent was dead. Its threat ended. Marcus Chun was also dead. Damien had kept his word. A quick bullet, no pain, no torture. It was more mercy than the man deserved, but Damien had learned that sometimes mercy was its own kind of strength. Uncle Damien? Ella's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Can you help me with this word problem? It's about apples, but I think they mean oranges. He sat down beside her, looking at the problem. Why do you think they mean oranges? Because if Johnny has 12 apples and gives away 5, he still has 7. But the question asks how many friends he has. You don't measure friends in apples. That's oranges. Actually, that's not how it works, Ella. Are you sure? Because Mama says comparing different things is like comparing apples and oranges. Damien found himself smiling. A real smile, not the calculated one he used in business. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? Mama says I get it from my papa. And from you. Ella looked up at him with those eyes. Antonio's eyes. Do you think my papa would be proud of me? The question hit him square in the chest. Yes, he said firmly. Antonio would be incredibly proud of you. You're everything he hoped you'd be: brave, smart, kind. He loved you before you were even born, and if he could see you now, he'd be amazed. Do you think he knows? Wherever he is. I think he does. And I think he's happy we found each other. Ella nodded seriously, then went back to her homework. Damien watched her work, marveling at how much had changed in 6 months. He'd gone from a man with no family, no real connections beyond business, to someone with a niece he'd die for and a sister-in-law who'd become a real friend. His phone buzzed. A text from Leo. Meeting pushed to tomorrow. Everyone agrees to your terms. Good. Another business deal settled. Another piece of his empire secured. But now, instead of pushing for more meetings, more deals, more power, Damien put his phone away. What do you say we close up early tonight? He called to Gianna. Take Ella to that Italian place she's been asking about? Gianna appeared in the doorway, smiling. The one with the pasta and the singing waiters? That's the one. Yes. Ella jumped up from her homework. Can I get spaghetti and meatballs? You can get whatever you want, Damien said, then added before she could get too excited, within reason. As they closed up the bakery together, Gianna locking the register, Ella stacking chairs with meticulous care, Damien turning off lights, he had a moment of clarity. This was what Antonio had wanted. Not necessarily this specific life, but this feeling. Family, safety, normalcy mixed with just enough excitement to keep things interesting. Antonio had died trying to give Ella a better life. And now, 12 years later, Damien was making that dream a reality. It wasn't the life Antonio had imagined. It still involved connections to the criminal world, still required security and caution. But Ella was safe, loved, and thriving. That had to count for something. Uncle Damien? Ella grabbed his hand as they walked to the car. Thank you. For what? For everything. For saving Mama. For being my uncle. For the bakery and the dinners and the bedtime stories. Just everything. Damien squeezed her hand. Thank you for running to me that night. For trusting me. For giving me a family. We're pretty good at being a family, aren't we? Yeah, Damien said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. We really are. That night, after dinner and singing waiters and too much tiramisu, Damien tucked Ella into bed in the apartment above the bakery. Her real home now, not a safe house, not a hiding place. Just home. Tell me about my papa? She asked, as she did every night. And Damien did. He told her about Antonio's laugh, his love of old movies, his terrible jokes. He told her how Antonio used to follow him around as a kid, how he'd looked up to Damien even when he probably shouldn't have. He told her about the good parts of his brother and carefully edited out the fear and the running and the tragic end. He sounds wonderful, Ella said sleepily. He was. And so are you. As Ella drifted off to sleep, Damien stood in the doorway watching her. A little girl who'd run to a monster for help and found an uncle instead. A child who'd lost her father but gained a family. A 7-year-old who'd survived more than any child should and came out stronger for it. She was his redemption. His second chance. His proof that even someone like him could do something right. Gianna appeared beside him, looking at her daughter with infinite love. You're good at this, she whispered. The uncle thing. I'm trying. No, you're succeeding. Look at her, Damien. She's happy. Safe. Loved. That's all Antonio ever wanted for her. I just wish he could have seen it. Maybe he does. Gianna smiled. I like to think he's up there somewhere watching over her. Watching over all of us. And I think he's proud of you. Proud that you're doing what he couldn't, keeping his family safe. They stood in comfortable silence. Two people bound together by tragedy and survival. Watching over a child who deserved the world. Come on, Gianna finally said. I'll make us some tea. We can go over the books for the bakery. Such an exciting Saturday night. This from the man who used to run a criminal empire? I still run a criminal empire. Just with more family dinners. Gianna laughed, and the sound was light and free. So different from the woman he'd found broken on a bakery floor 6 months ago. She'd healed in every way that mattered. They all had. As Damien followed her to the kitchen, past photographs on the wall, Ella's school pictures, candid shots of the three of them at the park, even an old photo of Antonio that Gianna had kept all these years, he realized something profound. He'd spent 20 years building an empire on fear. He'd become the Viper, ruthless and cold, because that's what survival required in his world. He'd lost his brother, his humanity, almost himself. But a little girl with his brother's eyes had run to him crying, begging for help, and everything had changed. She'd saved him just as much as he'd saved her. And now, in this small apartment above a bakery, surrounded by the scent of cinnamon and coffee, planning the week's menu with his sister-in-law while his niece slept peacefully down the hall, Damien Kane, the Viper, discovered something he'd thought was impossible. He was happy. Not the fleeting satisfaction of a business deal, or the rush of victory over an enemy. Real deep lasting happiness. The kind that came from family dinners and homework help and bedtime stories. The kind that made you want to wake up in the morning not to conquer but to simply be present. Antonio had been right to want this. To want to leave the darkness and build something in the light. He'd just been afraid Damien would stop him. The irony was, Damien would have helped if he'd known. Would have set Antonio free, given him money, protected him from a distance. Because that's what you did for family. He understood that now. Finally. Too late for Antonio but not too late for Ella. Damien. Gianna's voice brought him back to the present. You okay? You zoned out there. Yeah, he said and smiled. I'm good. Better than good, actually. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And for the first time in 20 years, that was the absolute truth.